When they told us the mission would take only 5 hours, I almost laughed. In all the years we'd spent watching this war from the sidelines, no one had dared to say those words. When I was summoned to the council room on Earth's orbital defense station, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Generals, admirals, all the big players, they were stone-faced. I was used to these types of briefings, the high-tension ones where every decision could cost lives. But the air in that room felt heavy in a way I hadn't felt before. As I took my seat next to Eli Torres, my second in command and the sharpest mind I knew, I gave him a questioning glance. He shrugged subtly, his dark eyes scanning the room with their usual calm. Eli and I had been through dozens of operations together, but this one felt different. He didn't need to say anything. I could see the faint edge of concern in his otherwise calm face. Admiral Chase was the one to finally break the silence, striding to the center of the room with a gravity that made even the most senior officers straighten up. He didn't mince words. "Commander Reeves, Captain Torres," he began, looking at each of us in turn, "we've been requested by the Intergalactic Alliance to participate in a matter of interstellar security." "Intergalactic?" I echoed, unable to stop myself. "Last I heard, the Alliance wanted us to stay in our lane. They've never wanted humanity involved." "That changed as of a week ago," Chase replied, his tone unyielding. "The Alliance has been fighting a war for the last decade against the Hithar Dominion, an enemy faction with technology and ruthlessness beyond anything we've encountered. Their latest offensive has reached a critical stage, one where traditional Alliance forces are losing ground. They're asking us to intervene because they believe humanity may offer a fresh perspective." Beside me, Eli shifted slightly, eyes narrowing as he processed the words. "So they're losing," he murmured, barely audible, "and they want us to risk everything on their behalf." Chase's eyes met mine. "The Alliance claims to have found a weak point. Their best tacticians are convinced a well-timed assault could cripple the Dominion's offensive capabilities. They believe that your team, Commander Reeves, has the strategic edge needed to execute it." I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my mind focused. My heart rate quickened, but I didn't let it show. If the Alliance was reaching out now, it meant they were on the brink. But 5 hours? That sounded like wishful thinking. "What's our window?" I asked, forcing my voice to remain steady. 5 hours, Chase said, the faintest hint of a smile tugging at his mouth. "From the moment you enter Dominion territory, the mission has to be completed within that time frame. It's a blitz operation. The Dominion is deeply entrenched, but their comm networks suffer severe delays in real-time responses. It's a vulnerability our analysts believe humanity's combat style can exploit." I glanced at Eli, and he returned a skeptical look. Blitz operations worked well enough on Earth, but we were talking about a multi-galactic civilization with tech we barely understood. Still, something in Chase's voice gave me pause. This wasn't just desperation. They believed in us, either that, or they were banking on us being expendable. "We're the wild card," Eli muttered, as if reading my mind. "They're sending us in because we don't play by their rules." "Exactly," Chase replied. "Human adaptability, rapid response tactics, and your intuition, Commander, are what the Alliance believes will turn the tide." I didn't like being reduced to a last-ditch experiment, but I couldn't deny the intrigue. I'd spent my entire life training, fighting in skirmishes across Mars, and defending colonies on the edge of known space. This felt different, though. For once, Earth wasn't just defending itself, we were fighting for something bigger. "We'll need full access to their intel," I said, finally nodding. "And a tactical team brief." Chase's expression softened. "It's already being transmitted to your command deck on the Intrepid. Get yourself acquainted with it. Commander, you leave at dawn." The room held an uncomfortable silence as Chase dismissed us. Eli and I rose, and I could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on our backs as we left. The Admiral's confidence in our abilities was both humbling and unnerving. As soon as the doors closed behind us, Eli shook his head. 5 hours, he repeated, echoing the number with a slight scoff. "We're diving headfirst into a fight half the galaxy couldn't win in a decade, and we're supposed to pull it off before lunch. I smirked despite the pressure. We've pulled off worse. Back on the Intrepid, we gathered the crew in the briefing room. Holographic screens displayed schematics, navigation routes, and the layout of the Dominion's territory. The hum of engines and murmurs of the crew were the only sounds as Eli and I began explaining the mission. The plan was straightforward. Enter Dominion space, bypass patrols, and strike at a critical coordination node. Destroying it would sever the Hithar fleet's command structure, leaving their forces scattered and vulnerable to a larger assault by the Alliance. As we moved through the details, I saw a mix of apprehension and excitement in the crew's eyes. They were seasoned, every one of them, but this was something new. This is no ordinary fight, I began, letting my gaze travel across each of them. The Hithar Dominion has been winning this war for years. They're stronger, more advanced, and they don't follow the same rules of engagement we're used to. They think we're just another species in over our heads. I paused, feeling the gravity of the words settling in. So let's show them what it means to be human. We're taking risks they won't see coming, and we're going to hit them where it hurts. Hard. For a second, silence. Then I saw the firelight in their eyes, the spark I'd been hoping for. They were ready. Eli nodded beside me, tapping into the interface to bring up the schematics of the Hithar node we'd be targeting. This isn't just a battle, he said, his tone calm yet cutting through the air. This is an introduction, our first impression on the galactic stage. Let's make it unforgettable. Hours later, as we prepared to enter Dominion space, the reality of the mission loomed. I sat alone in the command chamber, running through battle scenarios in my head. The Hithar didn't know we were coming, and if we did this right, they'd never know what hit them. Eli entered, settling into the seat beside me. "Thinking of Mars?" he asked, knowing me well enough to recognize the look on my face. "Always," I admitted. "A place where we learn to survive in an unforgiving wasteland. Somehow, this feels like the next step." He nodded, his eyes fixed on the stars. "This mission is bigger than Mars, though. We're playing for Earth's future, for humanity's place out here." The countdown timer flashed on the main console, T-2 minutes. "All hands to stations," I called over the intercom. The hum of anticipation filled the ship as every crew member prepared for the imminent jump. "Here we go," Eli said, his voice calm, but I caught the faint tension in his jaw. 5 hours, I replied, gripping the command controls. "Let's show them what that means." As we emerged into Dominion space, the fleet before us was almost majestic, hulking carriers and shimmering ships, each bristling with alien firepower. They hadn't even noticed us yet, tucked into a quiet stretch of space between asteroid belts. "Perfect." "Phase 1, I said, signaling Eli. Our first shots were precise, coordinated strikes on outer guard ships, taking them down before the main fleet had a chance to react. Alarms blared across the enemy's comms, their ships scrambling to locate us. But every second they wasted was a second we used to slip through their defenses. Within minutes, we reached the central node. The core was a massive, pulsing structure, alien in design with strange, asymmetrical spires that hummed with energy. It was mesmerizing and vulnerable. "Phase 2, Eli announced, triggering a barrage of heavy artillery on the node. The impact was immediate, an explosion that sent shockwaves through the surrounding ships. The Hithar fleet, thrown into chaos, stumbled to react. It was our opening. "All units, full assault," I ordered, adrenaline surging through me. As we tore through the Dominion forces, I felt the weight of our mission, the magnitude of what we were doing. Humanity was carving a path through enemy lines that no one else had managed. And then, just like that, it was over. The node fell, sparking a cascading collapse in the Hithar formation. What should have been an unbeatable fleet was shattered. 5 hours. That was all it took. Back in the briefing room, I took a deep breath, looking around at the faces of my crew. We'd done it. We'd made a mark. 5 hours, I murmured, feeling the enormity of it. We changed everything. Eli clapped a hand on my shoulder, a rare smile on his face. "Welcome to the galaxy, Commander. Let's see what they think of humanity now." The Hithar fleet didn't see us coming. The question was, could they withstand us? As we breached into the heart of Hithar Dominion space, the jump engines of the Intrepid hummed down, a low vibration that reverberated through the hull and settled deep into my bones. Around me, the crew held steady, their eyes locked on monitors displaying the vast black void just beyond our position. "Welcome to Hithar space," Ely murmured, standing beside me. His tone held a note of awe, but I caught the faintest hint of apprehension in his gaze. He wasn't alone. The Dominion sector was eerily silent. The stars gleamed, scattered like glittering knives. No movement yet, but we knew better. The Dominion's fleets were out there, lurking just beyond our sensors, waiting to catch the first hint of our presence. "We won't get a second chance at a first impression," I said, my voice low but steady. "They don't know we're here, but once they do, we're playing for keeps. Eli, run a scan. Let's see if we can spot the nearest patrols." "Roger that," he replied, fingers dancing across the control panel. A cluster of light points flared to life on the display, a group of ships roughly 20 kilometers ahead, clustered in a dense formation. No wonder we'd slipped in undetected. They were all clustered around a primary flagship, an imposing vessel that towered over the others like a steel behemoth. "Intel was right," Ely said, eyes narrowing as he examined the layout. "They're maintaining their defense in concentrated clumps. Looks like they're protecting a main command ship. Unorthodox, considering the size of their fleet." I grunted in response. The Hithar preferred overwhelming firepower, relying on numbers and their strange, intricate formations to win battles. The Intergalactic Alliance had warned us about this. The Hithar didn't think like us, didn't improvise, didn't adapt the way we did. That was our opening, and we had one chance to hit hard before they knew what we were capable of. "Coordinates locked," Ely confirmed. "But this isn't going to be pretty. They'll adapt fast." "All the better," I replied, a cold smirk slipping onto my face. "They don't know who they're dealing with yet. Let's give them a warm introduction." The Intrepid glided forward, thrusters low and silent as we closed in on the Hithar patrol. I gave the order, my voice echoing through the comm system with a calm that belied the thundering pulse in my chest. "All units, prepare for a coordinated assault. Target their formation center once we disrupt the command ship. The rest will be forced to split. Eli, maintain a continuous scan of their comm signals. Look for vulnerabilities, weaknesses, any hint of disarray." As the team readied weapons and shields, I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. This was the first direct clash between humanity and the Dominion. If we made a mistake, the Hithar would never forget it. But if we played this right, we'd etch our presence into their territory like a knife cutting through steel. "Fire on my mark," I ordered, my voice firm. The Intrepid's cannons blazed to life, synchronized volleys hurtling through the empty space. The blast connected with deadly precision, ripping through the command ship's outer shields and forcing a destabilizing ripple through the surrounding formation. The Dominion ships shifted, thrown off guard as their ranks scattered under the unexpected assault. We had them. "Go for the flanks," I barked. "If they can't regroup, they can't counter." Our ship darted and weaved, using erratic maneuvers to stay one step ahead of their slower, methodical turns. Each movement felt like a gamble, pushing our limits as we pressed forward. The Dominion forces hesitated, their disjointed lines struggling to keep pace with our sudden, unrelenting offense. Eli's voice cut through the comms. "They're trying to stabilize their comm line, Commander. But I've picked up a lag in their response times. If we hit just a little harder, we can buy another few minutes of confusion." I glanced at him, catching the sharp glint in his eyes. "Keep that line open. I want every second we can get. Push them until they break." "Understood," he replied, fingers already moving across the controls as he fed me updates on their scrambled signals. Around us, the Dominion's outer ships were faltering, lagging behind as the central command vessel attempted to regroup. Their formation, so rigid and practiced, was fracturing, splitting like a brittle shell. For a brief, savage moment, I almost pitied them. Almost. We closed in, hammering through the disorganized ranks. Our plasma cannons tore into their smaller vessels, sending twisted hulls spiraling away from the fray. But as the initial element of surprise wore off, a shift rippled through the enemy's ranks. Like a beast waking from sleep, the Dominion fleet adjusted, adapting to our erratic tactics with ruthless efficiency. "They're rallying," Ely warned, his voice taut. "The command ship's giving orders for a pincer maneuver. They've figured out our strike pattern." Damn it. The Dominion might lack our improvisation, but they weren't slow learners. Every second we lingered here risked giving them the time they needed to lock us down. "Adjust targeting," I ordered, pivoting to a more evasive formation. "Focus fire on their propulsion systems. Slow them down any way you can." As our team shifted, Ely worked his magic, his eyes never leaving his screen. With a focus that bordered on obsessive, he deciphered fragments of the Dominion's communications, relaying key weak points to the weapons team. Each decoded signal was like a small window into the Hithar's mindset, a glimpse into a world where logic reigns supreme, cold and unyielding. "Commander," Ely said after a beat, his voice sharper. "There's a line in their comms. It sounds like a warning. Something about consequences." "Consequences?" I echoed, frowning as I kept one eye on the dwindling Hithar formation. "They're saying we'll regret this interference. It's almost like they weren't expecting us to attack this way, and they're responding in kind." I let the words sink in, a dark satisfaction rising within me. For all their strength, for all their supposed superiority, we'd shown them something new, and it scared them. "Good," I muttered, a grim smile on my face. "Let them fear us." The next wave of attacks came harder, more desperate. The Hithar had adjusted to our tactics, matching our movements with increased precision, and it was clear they were done underestimating us. But we kept the pressure on, dodging, striking, and slipping away as they scrambled to keep up. A sudden shockwave jolted the Intrepid, sending sparks across the bridge and nearly throwing me from my seat. Ely gripped the side of his console, his face tight with alarm. "They've deployed advanced weaponry," he said, almost a growl. "That's experimental tech, something Alliance forces haven't even reported yet. They're pulling out the stops." I clenched my jaw, ignoring the sweat trickling down my temple. "Then we press harder. They've shown us their hand. Now we just have to play it better." The Intrepid veered, pulling a tight loop as we dove into the heart of the Dominion formation. It was a risk, diving straight into their core, but it was a calculated one. By shattering their cohesion from the inside, we could cripple their chain of command, and in war, fractured chains could be as good as broken. Our ship unleashed another barrage, each shot aimed at a vulnerable node or connection point, tearing through their lines with precision. The Hithar command ship shook, its shield wavering under the assault. The Dominion fleet faltered, their once coordinated movements stumbling as the command signals fragmented. The comms blared as we picked up another transmission, an alien voice that rang out across the battlefield, cold and ominous. "You will regret this interference, humans," the voice hissed, each word laced with disdain. "We have marked you as a primary threat. Know that your kind will not be spared." The words were meant to intimidate, to put fear into our hearts. But I met Ely's gaze, his eyes glinting with a fierce pride that mirrored my own. We'd done what no one else had dared. We'd rattled the unshakable. And in that moment, fear was the last thing on my mind. "Mark us as a threat all you like," I muttered, adjusting course. "We're just getting started." The final phase of the assault played out like a well-rehearsed symphony, each crewmember moving with practiced precision. The Dominion ships, once confident in their formation, were now struggling to hold ground. The fractures in their lines widened, the gaps growing as they fought to maintain cohesion. But even as we gained ground, I knew we were pushing our luck. The Intrepid was tough, but we couldn't withstand another direct hit from their advanced weaponry. Our energy reserves were running low, and the enemy ships were closing in. "Commander, we've got to pull back," Ely said, his voice strained but resolute. They're adapting faster than we can innovate. If we don't retreat now, we risk losing everything we've gained. Reluctantly, I gave the order to fall back, the Intrepid pulling away from the fray, a final volley of fire covering our retreat. As we maneuvered towards safer territory, the Hithar forces shadowed us, their message clear. They wouldn't stop until we paid for this encounter in full. The Dominion's final message echoed in my mind, a chilling reminder of the price we'd pay for what we'd just done. But as we returned to Allied space, battered but victorious, a fierce satisfaction settled within me. We'd shown them humanity's strength, our resilience and unyielding will. And now, the Hithar knew they were not invincible. They knew that humanity had arrived, and that we would not be ignored. The war had just begun. We came to turn the tide. Instead, we found ourselves on the run. The cold metal walls of the temporary command center rattled slightly as another explosion echoed outside. My hands were clenched tightly around the table's edge, the tremors traveling up my arms and settling in my chest. We'd barely secured our foothold with the Alliance, and already it felt like we were losing ground. "Commander Reeves," a voice called out from the doorway. I turned to see Eli Torres striding toward me, his face set with determination that belied the chaos outside. "We need to talk." He'd gathered the scattered remnants of our crew and a handful of alien allies, but the tension in the room was palpable. Some looked at me with a mix of admiration and apprehension, their gazes flickering to Eli and back to me. I could sense the undercurrents of resentment. We were humans, unorthodox and brash, and that was starting to wear thin on those who had been fighting this war far longer than we had. "Let's get everyone together," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil. "We need to sort through what we've accomplished and what we face next." As the last of the crew filed in, I caught a glimpse of Lieutenant Kalka among them, the seasoned alien strategist who had once regarded us with cautious respect. Now, as I met his eyes, I saw something darker, worry mixed with uncertainty. "Adrian," Kalka began, his voice a deep rumble, "your audacity has garnered attention, both positive and negative. The Dominion is not pleased." Eli stepped forward. "We didn't come here to make friends. We came to fight. Our last mission showed we can hit them where it hurts. We have provoked them," Kalka interrupted, his tone stern. "Their fleet has mobilized in a manner we have not anticipated. Reports indicate it now surpasses our projections. We have a serious problem." A murmur of concern rippled through the room. I could see it on the faces of my crew, fear mixed with a stubborn resolve. It was a familiar feeling, one I had experienced countless times before in the thick of battle. But this was different. We weren't merely fighting for survival, we were on a precipice that could shatter the tenuous alliance we had just formed. "Do we have a plan?" I asked, cutting through the unease. "Can we outmaneuver them?" "There is a potential course of action," Kalka replied, his expression inscrutable. "But it will require risking everything we have. There is a Hithar stronghold not far from here. If we can infiltrate it and retrieve vital intelligence, we might find a way to exploit the Dominion's weaknesses." Eli raised an eyebrow, a calculating look crossing his face. "And you believe we can do that without drawing their attention?" Kalka nodded, though the uncertainty in his eyes told me it was far from guaranteed. "We'll need to use their technology against them, hijack their systems, get inside their defenses. It will be a high-risk operation." I weighed my options. This was our opportunity, our chance to turn the tide once more. But I couldn't shake the feeling of unease gnawing at me. "What about the collateral damage?" I asked, glancing at my crew, whose expressions ranged from eager to apprehensive. "The last time we made a bold move, it drew a swift response. We can't afford to put everyone at risk again." "Adrian, if we don't take this chance, we'll be crushed," Eli said, his voice firm. "We're the only ones capable of pulling this off. The longer we wait, the stronger the Dominion gets." I hesitated, caught between the risk and the need to act. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the uncertainty. "All right, we'll do it. But we need to be smart about this. We can't lose sight of our mission or each other." As we laid out the details of the plan, I noticed the way Eli's brow furrowed with determination, and I knew we were about to step into something that would test us all. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparations. We gathered our gear, reviewed intel, and adapted our strategies to account for the risks ahead. The air buzzed with tension and determination, each member of our crew aware of the stakes. As we made our final preparations, Eli pulled me aside. "You're not feeling this is too risky, are you?" he asked, a hint of concern threading through his voice. "You've been quieter than usual." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "It's just, we're pushing our luck. Every victory comes at a cost. I don't want to lose anyone." "Neither do I," he replied, his eyes steady. "But sometimes, the only way forward is through the fire. We've made a mark, and if we can make the Dominion bleed, it'll show the galaxy we're not to be trifled with." I nodded, though doubt lingered in the back of my mind. It was a heavy burden, the weight of every decision we made. But Eli was right, we had to press forward. When we finally launched our strike, it felt surreal. The Intrepid glided through the cosmos, an arrow aimed at the heart of the Hithar stronghold. I took a moment to appreciate the beauty of the stars surrounding us, the silence of space filled with the potential of what was to come. "Entering the target zone," Eli announced, his focus unwavering. "Prepare for engagement." As we descended toward the stronghold, the massive structure loomed ahead, dark, angular, and bristling with technology that seemed almost alive. The comm systems were abuzz with activity, chatter from Hithar soldiers unaware of the storm about to hit them. We activated the stealth protocols, dimming the ship's signature as we slid past the outer defenses. I felt my pulse quicken, adrenaline surging through me as we approached the main entry point. "Keep it steady," I commanded, forcing my voice to stay calm. "We've trained for this." The seconds felt like hours as we navigated through the narrow corridors of the stronghold. The hum of machinery filled the air, and the shadows cast by overhead lights created an eerie atmosphere. We slipped through the shadows, moving as one, each member of our crew executing their role with precision. "Now," I whispered, signaling Eli to take point. We slipped into the command center, where a series of consoles blinked with alien symbols. Hithar soldiers moved about, oblivious to our presence. "Let's get that intel," I said, my voice low but urgent. Eli's hands danced over the controls, rapidly translating the alien text while I kept watch. I could feel my heart pounding as the seconds ticked by. Each moment felt fragile, like a thread that could snap at any time. "I've got it," Eli exclaimed, his voice filled with a mix of triumph and urgency. "This data shows their entire command structure. It points to a single communication hub that controls fleet coordination." "Perfect. We need to get this back to the ship," I said, ready to retreat. But then I heard footsteps approaching. "Adrian," Eli said, his voice sharp with concern. "We need to move. Now." I glanced over my shoulder to see a squad of Hithar soldiers entering the room, their weapons drawn and eyes scanning for intruders. "Go," I shouted, pushing Eli toward the exit as I fired off a warning shot, catching one of them off guard. The chaos erupted instantly. Alarms blared, red lights flashing in warning as we darted for the exit. I felt the adrenaline flooding my veins, my instincts sharpening as I fought through the confusion. "Get to the ship," I yelled over the deafening noise. The team moved in a fluid, practiced formation, ducking and weaving through the corridors as the Hithar soldiers fired behind us. We had to reach the docking bay before they could cut us off. But as we raced through the stronghold, I couldn't shake the feeling of being hunted. Every step we took was like a countdown, the echoes of our pursuers closing in. Eli was beside me, his face set in grim determination, and I could see the familiar fire in his eyes. "Almost there," he shouted, urging us forward as we burst through the final door leading to the docking bay. The Intrepid awaited us, but so did the Hithar. The docking bay was crawling with soldiers, their weapons raised, the atmosphere charged with tension. I skidded to a halt, heart racing as I weighed our options. "Now what?" Eli asked, scanning the room for an escape. "Take them down," I said, my voice steady. We can't leave without the ship. We moved as one, firing in unison as we ducked behind the protective cover of crates scattered throughout the bay. The return fire was immediate, laser blasts zipping past us. I could feel the heat from the impacts, the raw danger pushing us further into survival mode. "Cover me," Eli shouted as he darted out from behind cover, his weapon blazing as he took down 2 Hithar soldiers in quick succession. I followed closely behind, firing at the remaining soldiers who sought to pin us down. As the chaos unfolded, I could see our path to the ship slowly opening up. But the Hithar weren't going to give up without a fight. I fired again, aiming for the nearest console, sending sparks flying as it exploded in a shower of debris. "Now," I yelled, sprinting toward the Intrepid, my heart pounding in my chest. Eli followed close behind, but as we neared the ship, I could see a Hithar soldier take aim. "Eli," I shouted, and in that split second, I saw the glint of a weapon, the flash of recognition. I lunged, pushing him out of the line of fire just as a bolt struck the ground where he had been standing moments before. We stumbled, hitting the metal floor hard as the ship's engines roared to life. "Get aboard," I called out, forcing myself to my feet. We needed to move. I shot back at the Hithar soldier, sending him tumbling backward before making a mad dash for the ship's ramp. Eli was already inside, barking orders to the rest of the crew as they scrambled to their stations. I could feel the pressure of time bearing down on me, the need to get us off this rock before we became trapped. "Come on, Adrian," Eli shouted, urgency lacing his tone. "We're losing time." With one last glance over my shoulder, I sprinted up the ramp just as it began to close. The ship's engines roared as we ascended into the air, narrowly avoiding the incoming fire from the stronghold. As we broke free from the atmosphere, I exhaled a shaky breath, feeling the weight of our narrow escape settle around us. "We did it," Eli said, his voice barely above a whisper, a mixture of disbelief and relief etched on his face. "We actually did it." "We did," I replied, a sense of triumph washing over me. But as the adrenaline began to fade, I felt the looming questions return. The data we had retrieved was vital, but the cost of this victory weighed heavily on my conscience. Back in the command center, the crew buzzed with excitement over our successful raid. We had scored a significant victory against the Dominion, retrieving crucial intelligence that could shift the balance of power. But as I looked around, I noticed the exhaustion etched on their faces, the weariness that lingered even in the wake of our triumph. Eli joined me at the center of the room, clutching the data pad tightly. "We should analyze this intel immediately," he said, enthusiasm radiating from him. "We might have a chance to strike at their communication hub before they can regroup." "Let's focus on what we have," I replied, my voice even. "But I want to address something first." Eli raised an eyebrow, sensing the gravity in my tone. "What is it?" "I know we've achieved something important, but the cost, it's too high. The damage we caused at the stronghold, the lives lost, it can't become our norm." He paused, considering my words. "I get that, Adrian. But we're in a war. There are going to be casualties on both sides. The Hithar won't hesitate to fight back harder now." "I know," I replied, my heart heavy. "But we can't become what we're fighting against. I don't want to lose who we are in this war. We have to be better than that." Eli looked at me, understanding in his gaze. "You're right. We need to balance the fight with our humanity. I just hope we can achieve it without losing everything." The following days were a whirlwind of planning and preparation. We analyzed the intel we had gathered, uncovering details about the Dominion's communication hub and its vulnerabilities. Each revelation brought a new wave of optimism, but it was laced with anxiety. We were heading toward an assault that could either shatter the Dominion's grip on the galaxy or result in our complete annihilation. As the team strategized, Eli worked closely with Kaelka, striving to bridge the divide between our species. Their conversations revealed a wealth of knowledge, tactics that blended our human ingenuity with alien strategy. Slowly but surely, the tension that had simmered between our forces began to ease, and I could feel the camaraderie growing. Adrian, Illy said one evening as we studied the data. I think we found the key. If we can execute a surprise attack during their shift change, we might be able to disable their communications before they realize what's happening. Agreed, I said, feeling a spark of hope igniting within me. Let's put our plan into action. We need every advantage we can get. With the support of our alien allies, we laid the groundwork for the assault, preparing to strike when the Hithar least expected it. But as the date drew closer, I felt a weight settling over me, the lingering questions haunting my thoughts. The night before the mission, I lay awake in my quarters, staring at the ceiling as doubts churned in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that our luck would run out, that the victory we sought would come at a price I wasn't ready to pay. Eli's voice broke through my thoughts as he entered the room, his expression serious. Adrian, you look like you're about to jump out of your skin. Just thinking, I replied, forcing a smile. You know how it goes. He took a seat beside me, his presence grounding. Whatever is bothering you, you can share it. We're a team. It's just, I can't help but wonder if we're doing the right thing, I admitted, the weight of my thoughts spilling out. The more victories we achieve, the more I feel like we're losing ourselves in this fight. Eli nodded, his gaze thoughtful. It's natural to question our choices. But remember, we're not just fighting for survival, we're fighting for a future. A future where we can coexist, not just as humans and aliens, but as allies. I hope you're right, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We'll get through this, he assured me, his tone filled with conviction. We have each other, and that's what matters. The day of the assault arrived, and we launched into the void with a renewed sense of purpose. The Intrepid cut through the stars, and as we approached the Hithar communication hub, I felt the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Prepare for engagement, I commanded, my heart racing in anticipation. Eli sat at the controls, his focus unwavering. All systems are go. We're ready when you are. The hub loomed ahead, an imposing structure of dark metal and glowing lights. As we initiated our approach, I felt the weight of our mission pressing down on me. This was our moment, our chance to strike at the heart of the Dominion. Remember your positions, I reminded the crew. Stay sharp, and we'll make this quick. As we closed in on the hub, alarms blared, and enemy ships swarmed to intercept us. The battle erupted, chaos reigning as laser fire lit the darkness of space. I could feel the familiar rush of combat surging through me, and I took a deep breath, ready to lead my crew into the fray. Let's go, I shouted, engaging the ship's weapons as we maneuvered to evade incoming fire. The Intrepid danced through the chaos, our crew working in unison as we targeted the Hithar ships. Eli's voice cut through the din. We're taking heavy fire, adjusting shields to compensate. I could feel the strain on the ship, the impact of enemy fire reverberating through us. But we pressed on, relentless in our pursuit of victory. With each enemy ship we took down, I felt the tension within me begin to ease, hope igniting in my chest. Adrian, Eli shouted. We're approaching the communication hub. Get ready. We shot through the last wave of defenders, the massive structure of the hub looming ahead. My heart raced as we prepared to breach its defenses, our crew focused and ready. Now, I commanded as we dove into the heart of the enemy stronghold. Inside, the chaos intensified. The Hithar soldiers were prepared for an assault, their defenses fortified against an incursion. But we were fueled by determination, driven to expose the vulnerabilities we had uncovered. Eli led the charge, his voice steady as he coordinated the team's movements. Push forward. We need to disable the main control room. We fought our way through the halls, the sound of weapons firing ringing in our ears. Every step was a calculated risk, and I could feel the tension mounting. The stakes had never been higher. Finally, we reached the main control room. The sight before us was chaotic, Hithar technicians scrambling to counter our incursion. Cover me, I shouted, moving forward to disable their systems. As I fired at the approaching soldiers, I felt the weight of every decision we had made. This was the turning point that could change everything. With a few deft movements, I accessed the console, overriding their systems and initiating the shutdown. The lights flickered, and the tension in the room shifted as the control center went dark. "We did it," Eli shouted, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. "Now let's get out of here." But as we turned to leave, the alarms blared again, echoing in our ears. I felt a rush of dread as HFY soldiers flooded into the room, their expressions furious as they recognized the threat. "We need to move," I yelled, adrenaline surging as we fought to make our escape. The path back was a blur of chaos, laser fire lighting up the corridors as we navigated the labyrinthine stronghold. Just when it seemed we might escape, a HFY soldier caught Eli off guard, striking him down as he stumbled. I felt a surge of panic rise within me, but there was no time to hesitate. "Eli," I shouted, my heart racing as I fought my way to his side. I managed to push the HFY soldier back, my focus narrowing as I knelt beside Eli. "Come on, we have to go," I urged, but he shook his head, determination burning in his eyes. "Go, finish the mission," he gasped, pain etched across his features. "No, I'm not leaving you," I yelled, my voice breaking as I realized the weight of what we were facing. But Eli's gaze remained steady, even as the chaos swirled around us. "You have to. You can't let it all be for nothing. You know what this means." I hesitated, torn between my desire to save him and the mission that hung in the balance. But as HFY soldiers closed in, I knew I had to make a choice. With a final, agonizing glance, I turned and sprinted down the corridor, the sounds of battle echoing behind me. My heart raced as I fought through the pain of losing my friend, the weight of his sacrifice driving me forward. I burst through the doors of the stronghold, the cold air hitting me as I sprinted toward the Intrepid. The crew was waiting, ready to launch us into the stars. "Get us out of here," I yelled as I boarded, feeling the heaviness of grief settling over me like a shroud. I glanced back at the stronghold, knowing the price we had paid. As the engines roared to life and we broke free from the atmosphere, I felt the tears spill down my cheeks. We had achieved our objective, but the cost had been high. We returned to the command center, the weight of victory tinged with sorrow. The crew celebrated, but the joy felt hollow in my chest. I had lost Eli, my friend, my ally. The price of our success was too steep. As I stood in the midst of the celebration, I could feel the weight of my choices pressing down on me. The victory had come, but at what cost? The shadows of loss lingered in my heart, a constant reminder of the path we had chosen. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the grief that threatened to overwhelm me. I needed to honor Eli's sacrifice, to remember what we had fought for. This was a turning point, not just for the war, but for me personally. The Dominion was reeling from our assault, and we had a chance to turn the tide. But as I looked around at my crew, I knew I had to lead them not just in battle, but with compassion. We had to remember the humanity we fought for and the lives we sought to protect. "Let's get to work," I said, my voice steady as I addressed the team. "We have a war to win, and Eli's sacrifice will not be forgotten." In that moment, I felt the determination rising within me. We would honor him by fighting for a future where we could coexist not just as humans and aliens, but as a united front against tyranny. The Dominion's hub was its heartbeat. Take it out, and the HFY would fall. As I stared at the holographic display of the HFY communications hub, a cold sweat trickled down my back. This was it, the moment we had prepared for, the moment we had sacrificed so much to reach. Eli stood beside me, his dark eyes fixed on the swirling data that painted the image of our target, a colossal structure floating in the black void of space, surrounded by a fortress of warships. Every pulsing light was a reminder that we were up against a foe that had wreaked havoc across the galaxy for too long. "We've come this far," Eli said, his voice steady, almost a calm anchor amidst the storm of anxiety swirling in my chest. "But this is our boldest move yet." "It's our only move," I replied, clenching my fists. "If we can disable their communication hub, we'll cripple the entire Dominion fleet. Their troops will be lost without orders. It's time we ended this war." A flicker of doubt crossed Ilay's face before he masked it with determination. I knew how he felt. This was a high-risk mission, one that could easily end with our deaths or worse, but the fate of countless lives hung in the balance. The Alliance had provided us with intel that suggested a narrow window of vulnerability during the hub's activation cycle. If we timed our assault right, we could exploit that opening to penetrate their defenses. "Let's run through the plan one last time," Eli suggested, gesturing toward the projection. I nodded, drawing a deep breath. "We hit them fast and hard. Our goal is to breach the outer perimeter while they're still scrambling to adjust their communications. Once we're inside, we'll plant the explosives at key junctions and disrupt their system. After that, we'll regroup and rendezvous with the fleet." I could see the crew's faces, a mixture of determination and trepidation. Every one of them knew the risks. We'd all lost comrades in this fight, and the thought of leading them into the heart of enemy territory was a heavy burden. But we had come too far to turn back. "Remember, this is about survival," I added, trying to instill some confidence. "We fight not just for ourselves, but for every person out there suffering under Hithar oppression. We can't let fear dictate our actions." Eli stepped forward, his voice rising above the whispers of uncertainty. "We are humanity, and this is our time to shine. We've proven ourselves before, and will prove ourselves again. Each of you is a vital part of this mission, and together we'll make history." The cheers that erupted were enough to wash away the tension, if only momentarily. We were ready to take the fight to the heart of the enemy. As the Intrepid broke through the atmosphere of the Hithar homeworld, we maneuvered through a veil of darkness, cloaked from enemy sensors. The anticipation in the cockpit was palpable, a mixture of excitement and dread that thrummed beneath the surface like a tightly coiled spring. The countdown timer ticked away in the background, a relentless reminder that we had only a narrow window to act. "Entering target range," I announced, fingers hovering above the controls. "Eli, prepare the team for deployment." Eli nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration as he issued orders over the comms. I could hear the crew checking in one by one, affirming their readiness. 5 minutes to insertion," I said, taking a moment to steady my racing heart. "Let's move." The moment the ship docked with the exterior of the hub, adrenaline surged through my veins. The plan called for a surgical strike, a clean insertion. But as the airlock opened, a sense of unease settled in. The dimly lit corridors of the hub were eerily quiet, the walls pulsating with the faint hum of machinery. "Stay sharp," I whispered, signaling for the team to spread out. "We'll split into 2 groups. Eli, you lead one team to the command center. I'll take the other to the reactor core. We need to plant those charges quickly." Eli's eyes narrowed. "Got it. Keep your comms open. We'll sync up when we can." As we split up, I felt the weight of leadership settle on my shoulders. Every step echoed in the narrow corridor, and I could almost hear the heartbeat of the hub syncing with my own. We moved cautiously through the labyrinthine structure, our movements calculated, but it wasn't long before the alarms blared to life. The deep, guttural sound resonated through the halls, a stark reminder that we had stepped into the lion's den. "Adrian, we're not alone," one of my crew members shouted over the comms, panic in his voice. "Stay calm," I barked back. "We'll handle it." But even as I said it, my heart sank. We had anticipated some level of resistance, but the Hithar were swift to respond. Shadows darted through the corridors, and gunfire erupted in a cacophony of chaos. "Move! Move!" I yelled, diving for cover as blasts of energy ricocheted off the walls. The air crackled with tension, and I could feel the heat of combat wash over me. I gestured for my team to regroup, adrenaline pushing me forward as I sought to rally them amidst the chaos. With every step, I could hear the roar of battle echoing in my ears. We fought fiercely, but for every Hithar we took down, 2 more seemed to take their place. They were relentless, their disciplined formations closing in on us like a tightening noose. "Adrian, we're getting overrun," one of my soldiers shouted. "We need to fall back." "No," I gritted my teeth, feeling the burden of leadership. "We have to push through. If we retreat now, everything we've worked for will be in vain. Suddenly, Eli's voice cut through the static, a beacon of hope amidst the storm. We've secured the command center. We're working to disable their comms, but we need a distraction to hold them off. Hold on, I shouted, rallying my team. We'll create a diversion. Follow my lead. We charged forward, engaging the HFY head-on, pushing our way toward a junction that could lead to the reactor. I felt every ounce of fear and doubt dissolve into raw determination. This was our moment, our chance to strike back against an enemy that had taken too much. Just as we neared our objective, the ground shook violently. An explosion rocked the corridor, sending debris raining down around us. I staggered, catching myself against the wall as alarms screamed louder than ever. "What the hell was that?" one of my crew members yelled, scrambling to regain his footing. "Eli, what's happening?" I shouted into the comms, heart racing. "Adrian, they've activated a new weapon. We're getting reports of ships being obliterated." Eli's voice was frantic. "They've got something big, and it's targeting our allies." A chilling realization washed over me. The Dominion was unleashing everything they had left to protect their hub, and we were in the crosshairs. "Fall back. We have to regroup," I commanded. But the chaos had already taken hold. HFY soldiers were pouring in from all sides, pushing us into a corner. "We're not going to make it," one soldier cried out, panic evident in his tone. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to think through the chaos. I had to find a way out. "Eli, can you give us an update on that weapon?" "Negative. We can't get close enough. It's drawing power from the hub itself." Eli's voice trembled, filled with urgency. "You need to find a way to disable it." The weight of the moment hit me like a physical blow. We were fighting for our lives, and now I had to make a decision: press on or retreat. But retreat meant leaving the mission unfulfilled, abandoning everything we had fought for. "Eli," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil around me. "You need to take command. Get your team to disable that weapon. I'll hold off the HFY here." "Adrian, no," Eli protested, his voice filled with panic. "We can do this together." "I won't let this end without giving it everything I have," I replied, resolve hardening my words. "You're a natural leader, Eli. You need to trust yourself." In that moment, I saw it in his eyes, the flicker of fear, then the spark of determination. He understood. "Fine," Eli said, voice steadying. "But you better not die on me." With one final nod, we parted ways. I led my team deeper into the fray, pushing back against the tide of HFY soldiers. Each step was a battle, but the flicker of hope was ignited within me. Eli was ready to take charge, and that thought fueled my strength. The deeper I pushed into the heart of the hub, the more I could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on me. The air was thick with tension, and every corner turned was fraught with danger. But I had to keep moving forward. A roar of gunfire erupted, and I dove into cover just as a HFY soldier came around the corner, his weapon raised. My blaster fired true, the energy bolt striking him squarely in the chest. I felt the adrenaline coursing through my veins, sharpening my focus as I moved to flank the next wave of enemies. But the HFY were not backing down. They pressed in from all sides, their disciplined formations tightening around us. I could hear the comms crackling with urgency, the voices of my team blending into a chaotic symphony of fear and determination. "Adrian, we're pinned down," a voice shouted, the panic seeping through. "Hold the line," I yelled back, every fiber of my being urging my team to stand strong. "We're almost there." We pressed forward, engaging in a desperate battle for every inch of ground. I could see the comms hub glowing ahead, pulsating with energy as the HFY coordinated their assault. I had to reach it. But then, just as we seemed to gain the upper hand, the sound of a heavy weapon charging filled the air. My stomach dropped as I looked up to see a massive HFY artillery piece locking onto our position. "Take cover," I shouted, throwing myself to the ground just as the weapon discharged. The explosion was deafening, a fiery blast that sent shockwaves through the corridor. I felt the heat wash over me, followed by the sharp sting of debris. As I struggled to regain my senses, I looked around to find my team scattered, some injured, others struggling to get back on their feet. "Status report," I barked, forcing myself to move through the haze of chaos. "We're holding, but we're running out of time," one soldier shouted back. "If we can't disable that weapon, we're finished." Eli, my heart raced. I had to trust him. I had to believe he would find a way. Suddenly, through the comms, Eli's voice burst forth, filled with urgency. "Adrian, I think I found a flaw in the weapon's activation cycle. If you can create a diversion, I can slip in and disable it." "Copy that," I replied, heart pounding. "Hold your position. We'll create the distraction." I looked at my team, determination burning in my chest. "We're going to give Eli the opening he needs. On my mark." Together, we took cover behind the wreckage, weapons poised, adrenaline surging through our veins. As the Hithar soldiers advanced, we unleashed a hail of fire, drawing their attention away from Eli's position. "Now, Eli, go!" I shouted into the comms. I could see him moving stealthily through the chaos, his eyes locked on the weapon as he navigated through the melee. It was a desperate gamble, but it was the only shot we had. Come on," I muttered under my breath, watching as Eli inched closer. The Hithar were focused on us, unaware of the impending threat they faced. With a sudden surge, Eli launched himself at the weapon's control panel, fingers flying over the controls. I held my breath, heart pounding in my chest as the tension mounted. "Almost there," he murmured, sweat glistening on his brow. The Hithar finally realized something was amiss, and chaos erupted as they turned to face Eli. "Eli, watch out!" I shouted, but it was too late. The Hithar were on him. He fought fiercely, grappling with the soldiers that lunged for him. But he was one man against many, and the weight of their combined force bore down. "Eli," I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. "Fight back, you can do this." And then, in a moment of pure instinct, Eli surged forward, slipping past the grasping hands as he activated the override. A surge of energy pulsed through the weapon, its ominous hum shifting to a chaotic roar. "I did it," Eli yelled, triumph flooding his voice as the weapon began to malfunction. With a final push, he disabled the weapon, sending a shockwave of energy rippling through the room. "Now, let's finish this," I roared, rallying my team for one final charge. With the weapon disabled, the Hithar fell into disarray. We pressed forward, moving with a newfound urgency as we surged toward the comms hub. The enemy soldiers were scattered, scrambling to regroup, and it was our moment to strike. Adrenaline coursed through my veins as we barreled toward our target. I could see the comms hub now, its pulsating lights beckoning like a beacon of hope. We raced through the corridor, weapons blazing, our determination igniting every step we took. "Adrian, the charges," one of my soldiers shouted. "We have to plant them before it's too late." With a fierce determination, I moved forward, placing the explosives at critical junctions throughout the hub. Each charge was a promise of liberation, a step toward freedom for those suffering under the Hithar oppression. "Planting the last one," I shouted, heart pounding as I set the final charge. But just as we finished, alarms blared through the corridors once more. The Hithar were regrouping, and they were coming for us. "Fall back, we need to evacuate," I commanded, urgency propelling us forward as we raced toward the exit. The walls trembled as the charges began to detonate, explosions rocking the very foundation of the hub. We dashed through the chaos, dodging blasts and debris as we pushed ourselves to the limit. "Move, move," I shouted, adrenaline flooding my senses as we neared the exit. With every step, I could feel the weight of the mission pressing down on me. We had come too far to fail. Finally, as we burst through the final door, I glanced back just in time to see the hub erupt in a cascade of flames and light. The explosion rippled through the air, sending shockwaves that reverberated in my chest. We stumbled into the waiting shuttle, breathless and battered. As the doors sealed shut, I couldn't help but feel a mix of triumph and dread. We had succeeded, but the cost was evident. "Eli," I called, heart pounding as I searched for him among the crew. Is everyone accounted for? Just about, he replied, breathless but alive. We did it, Adrian. We took down the communications hub. The shuttle surged forward, breaking free from the chaos of the hub as we escaped into the void of space. Behind us, the remnants of the hub glowed ominously, a testament to our struggle. But even as victory washed over us, a heavy weight settled in my chest. The war wasn't over yet. The Dominion would retaliate, and we had to be ready. As we docked with the fleet, the sounds of cheers erupted around us. The message of our victory spread like wildfire, igniting hope in the hearts of those who had fought so hard. But in that moment of celebration, I couldn't shake the feeling of loss. We had won, but at what cost? How many more battles lay ahead? Ely stepped up beside me, sensing my turmoil. Adrian, we did it. We've changed the tide of the war. I nodded, a bittersweet smile creeping across my lips. But there's still so much to do. We have to keep fighting. Together, Ely said, a fierce glint in his eye. Together. 5 hours. That's all it took. And yet, we left with scars that would last a lifetime. Returning to Allied space felt surreal. The Intrepid glided through the familiar corridors of the fleet's command station, and I could hardly believe the cheers and celebrations that awaited us. Adrian Reeves, commander of humanity's first expeditionary force hero, they said. Yet the weight of the victory felt heavier than any burden I had carried before. The war with the Hithar Dominion had collapsed with stunning speed. Our Blitz operation had dismantled their command structure and shattered their morale in mere hours. We were hailed as champions, but as we entered the station, the atmosphere was tense. Alien allies stood wide-eyed, gazing at us with a mix of admiration and apprehension. They had witnessed our power, and I could sense their fear, a deep-seated worry that humanity's remarkable efficiency could one day turn against them. As I stepped down from the ship, I was greeted by Admiral Chase and a crowd of commanders from the Intergalactic Alliance. Commander Reeves, Captain Torres, welcome back. Chase's voice boomed, his enthusiasm infectious, but it fell flat in my ears. I forced a smile as I accepted congratulations, feeling hollow inside. Great job out there, one officer exclaimed, slapping my back hard enough to make me stumble. I returned the favor with a weak grin, even as my thoughts raced through the consequences of our actions. Ely walked beside me, his expression equally strained. You okay? He asked, his voice low enough for only me to hear. Yeah, I lied. Just processing everything. We moved through the crowd, nodding to our allies and receiving their gratitude, but the cheers rang hollow in my mind. Had we done the right thing? I could almost feel the Hithar ships exploding in my mind's eye, the screams of dying crews haunting my thoughts. Later that day, we were summoned to the council chamber, the grandest hall in the Alliance's flagship station. It was a massive dome adorned with intricate carvings that depicted ancient battles fought by the Alliance, its walls pulsing with energy. Today, it was filled to capacity, the tension palpable. The air felt thick with unspoken questions and veiled mistrust. As we took our seats at the long, round table, I couldn't help but notice the faces of our alien allies. Many had been supportive throughout the war, but now the admiration in their eyes was coupled with a glint of fear. Kaelka, the formidable leader of the Cryans, leaned forward, his many eyes narrowing in scrutiny. Commander Reeves, Captain Torres, he began, his voice booming yet measured. Your victory was astounding, but it has left many of us unsettled. We must discuss the ramifications of your methods. I felt the weight of his gaze, the intensity of it pressing down on me. What do you mean, Kaelka? I asked, trying to maintain my composure. Your swift and brutal efficiency has instilled a fear amongst us. What if this power you wield becomes a threat to our peace? He challenged. We know of humanity's capacity for destruction. We saw it firsthand. Ely straightened, his usual calm demeanor turning resolute. We did what we had to do to protect the Alliance. We intervened to prevent greater loss. The Hithar forces were committing atrocities, slaughtering entire colonies. Our actions saved lives. Kaelka's eyes flickered with doubt. But at what cost? Many Hithar lives were lost, innocent and guilty alike. You wield a blade that is swift, but also cruel. Can you guarantee that humanity will not be seen as a reckless force in the future? I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Eli's defense had merit, but Kalka's concerns were just as valid. I remembered the faces of those we had killed, the collateral damage. Could we really stand here and justify our actions? Kalka, I understand your concern, I said, forcing my voice to steady. We do not take these decisions lightly, but in the chaos of war, every choice comes with a cost. We acted to protect those who could not protect themselves. The Cryan leader remained unconvinced, his eyes narrowing further. And if we find ourselves on the wrong side of that blade one day? The atmosphere shifted, the murmurs of the assembled leaders growing louder. I could sense their unease, their minds racing with the implications of what had just been said. Humanity is not our enemy, Eli spoke up, his voice commanding attention. We fought alongside you and risked everything to ensure the safety of the Alliance. We have a stake in this galaxy, just as you do. Our commitment to peace is unwavering, but peace sometimes requires strength. I saw nods of agreement from some leaders, but doubt still clouded others. The tension in the room was thick. I felt the weight of leadership pressing down on me. I had to assure them that we would be responsible. We're not here to dominate, I said, meeting Kalka's gaze. We want to build a future together, where every species has a voice. But we cannot deny that we've also seen what can happen when power is left unchecked. If we are to be allies, we must ensure that we work together to maintain peace. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, but Kalka's skepticism remained. Actions speak louder than words. Commander, you may have saved the Alliance today, but tomorrow, the galaxy will watch closely. As the discussions continued, I found my resolve shaken. We had achieved a great victory, but at what cost? The scars of our actions ran deep, not just in the lives lost, but in the relationships strained by our methods. Eli sensed my growing turmoil. Adrian, he said quietly as the meeting wore on, you can't let this get to you. We did what we had to do. We saved lives. Did we? I replied, the weight of my thoughts heavy in my chest. How many lives were lost in the wake of our attack? How do we measure the cost of victory? Eli shook his head. We can't dwell on it, not now. The galaxy needs us. You're a leader, Adrian. You have to stand firm. Firm, sure, but at what cost? They see us as a threat, I argued. I want to protect humanity, not become its worst enemy. He leaned closer, intensity in his eyes. Then we prove to them that we are a force for good. We rebuild trust. You're right, we must value peace over dominance. But we also need to show that humanity won't be bullied. The final discussions came to a close as the Council voted on our admission into the Intergalactic Council. There was a mixture of apprehension and acceptance, and when the vote passed, I felt a strange mix of pride and anxiety wash over me. The council chamber buzzed with excitement and apprehension. We had taken our seat at the table, but I could still sense the weight of uncertainty in the air. As the leaders exchanged pleasantries, I found myself deep in thought. Eli approached me, a sense of purpose in his stride. We're here now, he said, his voice steady. It's time to make our intentions clear. We'll work to ensure peace, and that starts with us. Yeah, I replied, looking out over the vast expanse of stars visible through the chamber's dome. 5 hours changed everything, didn't it? Eli nodded, his expression resolute. Let's make sure it was worth it. We'll build alliances, mend fences, and show them that humanity is here to stay not as a conqueror, but as a partner. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my thoughts. This was our chance to prove ourselves, to forge a future where humanity was a force for good, not a harbinger of destruction. With one last glance at the vastness of space, I turned to Eli. Let's make it count. As we stepped out of the chamber, the soft glow of the stars surrounded us, a reminder of the countless lives we were now responsible for. We walked side by side, ready to embrace the challenge ahead, determined to ensure that the scars of our victory would not be the end of our story. As we navigated the corridors of the command station, I felt a strange blend of hope and trepidation. The hallways echoed with the chatter of officers and delegates, the promise of a new beginning. Yet, the specter of our actions loomed large. We had changed the course of a war, but now we had to face the repercussions of that change. "Adrian," Eli said as we walked, breaking my reverie. "What's next for us?" "We focus on rebuilding trust," I replied, my mind racing through strategies. "We need to engage with the Cryans, everyone. We have to show them that we're committed to cooperation. It's not just about power anymore, it's about creating a balance." "Exactly," Eli agreed. "It'll take time, but I believe we can do it. We've made a name for ourselves now, and we can use that to foster peace." I stopped in front of a viewport that overlooked the stars, the vastness of space reminding me of the stakes. "What if we can't?" I wondered aloud. "What if we end up losing what we just gained?" Eli placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Then we adapt. Humanity has always been adaptable. We survived against the odds. We can do it again." With those words, I felt a flicker of determination spark within me. It wouldn't be easy, but we had faced adversity before and emerged stronger. We were not just a force of destruction. We were capable of great things, of hope, of unity. Over the next few weeks, we worked tirelessly to mend the relationships strained by the war. I found myself meeting with Kalka regularly, discussing the future of the Alliance. Our conversations were often tense, but slowly, I began to see the flicker of trust in his many eyes. "Commander," he said one afternoon, his tone more open than before, "your actions have forced us to reconsider our view of humanity. It is a strange thing to be both in awe and fear of your species. But you are right. We must build a future together." I nodded, feeling the burden of responsibility weigh heavily. "It won't be easy, but we have to commit to transparency and cooperation. Together, we can ensure that the galaxy remains a safe haven for all species." Eli stood beside me, offering support as we navigated the complexities of intergalactic politics. It was a challenge, one that tested our resolve, but I felt encouraged by the gradual shift in our relationships. Months passed, and the atmosphere began to change. Alien leaders started to see us not just as a threat, but as allies. We hosted diplomatic summits and engaged in joint training exercises, showcasing our commitment to peace. One evening, as I prepared for another meeting, I reflected on how far we had come. I glanced at Eli, who was reviewing our strategies. "You know," I said, breaking the silence, "I never thought we would make it this far." Eli looked up, a grin spreading across his face. "I always believed in us. We were forged in fire, and now we have a chance to shape the future." He was right. The journey ahead would require strength and diplomacy, but we had laid the groundwork. The scars of our victory would remain, but they would serve as a reminder of the sacrifices made for a better future. As I stood at the podium during the next Intergalactic Council meeting, I felt a surge of pride. Our efforts had paid off, and humanity was no longer viewed through a lens of fear. Instead, we were embraced as a vital member of the Alliance. "Fellow leaders," I began, my voice steady. "Today, we stand on the precipice of a new era. Our victory over the Hithar Dominion was not just a testament to our strength, but a reflection of our commitment to peace and cooperation. Let us move forward together, forging bonds that will endure." The applause that followed filled the chamber, echoing off the walls and reverberating through my chest. I shared a glance with Eli, his eyes bright with hope. As the meeting concluded and delegates began to disperse, I felt a sense of closure. We had faced our demons and emerged, not as conquerors, but as stewards of peace. "Adrian," Eli said, catching up to me, "we did it." I smiled, looking out over the stars once more. 5 hours. We changed everything. "Let's make sure it was worth it," he replied, determination etched across his face. Together, we stepped into the future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The scars of our victory would remain, but they would not define us. Instead, they would serve as reminders of our choices and the responsibility we bore. With hope in our hearts, we ventured forward into the vast unknown of the galaxy, ready to build a better tomorrow. 5 hours, that's all it took. And yet, we left with scars that would last a lifetime. The metallic hum of the Intrepid resonated through the ship, a comforting reminder of home amid the stars. As I stood on the bridge, the glow of the control panels flickered in the low light, casting long shadows on the walls. The tension was palpable. Eli and I had just returned from what was supposed to be a diplomatic mission, a straightforward meeting with our alien allies. But the reality was more complex than that. "Commander, the situation is becoming increasingly volatile," Eli said, his fingers flying over the holographic interface as he pulled up the latest intelligence reports. "The rogue Hithar factions are mobilizing. They're not accepting defeat quietly." I leaned over his shoulder, scanning the readouts. Our earlier victory against the Dominion had been swift and decisive, but now, in the aftermath, the true cost of war was revealing itself. "What do we know about their movements?" I asked, trying to suppress the unease gnawing at my gut. Eli shifted, his dark eyes reflecting the light of the screen. "They've regrouped at several strongholds along the fringes of our territory. It's clear they're consolidating their forces, likely planning retaliatory strikes. They're fueled by resentment. Commander, this could escalate quickly." "Understood. We need to prepare for possible encounters," I replied, my mind racing through various strategies. The Intrepid had proved its mettle in combat, but this was different. These weren't the organized Dominion forces we had faced before. These were rogue elements, unpredictable and desperate. "Adrian, I've been thinking," Eli said, hesitating as he switched screens. "What if we could reach out to some of these factions, offer them a way to reintegrate? They might be more open to negotiation than we realize." "Negotiation is a noble thought, but I'm not sure they'll see it that way. We just dealt them a serious blow. Right now, they're more likely to want revenge than a peaceful resolution," I said, rubbing my temples. The weight of command pressed heavily on my shoulders. The comms officer interrupted, her voice tense. "Commander, we're receiving reports of an unidentified ship approaching fast. It's Hithar, and it's not responding to hails." I straightened, adrenaline surging through my veins. On screen, the holographic display flickered to life, revealing a sleek, menacing vessel, a smaller but highly agile Hithar ship, its weapons bristling. It moved with a predatory grace, darting toward us like a shark sensing blood in the water. My instincts kicked in, and I felt the familiar rush of strategy and decision-making flood my mind. "Eli, can you get us a reading on their systems?" I asked, my voice calm despite the rising tension. "Trying now, but they're running dark." "It's going to take some time," he replied, his fingers working frantically across the controls. I assessed our situation. We were in a narrow corridor between star systems, a spot where ambushes were common. "Weapons to standby. Prepare for evasive maneuvers," I ordered, my voice steady as I took charge. The crew responded quickly, their faces taut with concentration. "Evasive maneuvers ready," the pilot confirmed, his fingers gripping the controls tightly. As the enemy ship closed in, I knew we had to act fast. "Eli, can you disrupt their targeting systems?" "I'll try, but it's going to be a challenge. They're using a new frequency modulation, probably to counteract our previous tactics," he said, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Then we need to make ourselves a harder target. Helmsman, divert power to shields and prepare for a sharp turn. On my mark, now." The Intrepid shuddered as it banked sharply, dodging a volley of plasma fire that lit the darkness of space like miniature stars exploding. The enemy ship pursued us relentlessly, its weapons firing again and again, but my heart raced with the thrill of the fight. "Eli, I need that hack now," I shouted over the chaos. "Almost there," he grunted, sweat beading on his forehead as he focused on the screen. "Just a few more seconds. Come on, come on." With a deftness I'd come to admire, he tapped into the Hithar systems, and I could see the enemy ship's targeting reticles flickering erratically. "Got it. Their targeting systems are down," Eli shouted, relief evident in his voice. "Excellent, helmsman. Fire a warning shot across their bow, I ordered, knowing we needed to assert dominance without escalating the situation further. The Intrepid's cannons roared to life, and a bright burst of energy shot forward, striking just in front of the enemy ship. The Hithar vessel hesitated, its momentum stalling as its crew recalibrated. "Now, let's make our escape," I commanded. Full speed ahead, heading towards the nearest Allied sector. As we blasted away from the enemy ship, I felt a mixture of triumph and anxiety coursing through me. We had managed to escape this ambush, but I knew it was only the beginning. The fallout from our earlier victory was spiraling out of control. The crew worked diligently, repairing damage and assessing casualties. I took a moment to step away, looking out the viewport at the vastness of space. It felt like staring into an abyss, one that echoed with uncertainty and potential destruction. I wondered how many more skirmishes like this awaited us, how many lives were at stake because of the choices we had made. After a few hours, we finally made it to the Allied fleet. The familiar sight of ships gathered for protection offered a sense of relief, but it was fleeting. The mood was tense. Everyone could feel the shift in the air. We weren't just heroes anymore, we were a threat. "Adrian," Illy approached me, his expression serious. "We need to talk about what just happened." I nodded, gesturing for him to continue. "You think this is just the tip of the iceberg?" "Absolutely. The Hithar factions are enraged, and they're not going to rest until they've retaliated. I overheard some of the crew talking about their experiences during the war. They think humanity is a force of destruction," he said, his voice heavy with concern. "Are we?" I asked, almost to myself. "We stepped in when they needed us, but now, are we the monsters they see us as?" Illy sighed, running a hand through his hair. "We did what we thought was right, but that doesn't change the fact that we've created a cycle of violence. They're feeling cornered, and cornered animals fight back. We need to find a way to reassure our allies that we're here to help, not to dominate." I glanced at him, his unwavering determination sparking something within me. "You're right. I'll call for a meeting with the alien leaders. We need to address these fears before they escalate into something uncontrollable." The meeting was set for the following day, and as I prepared my notes, I couldn't shake the unease that clung to me like a shroud. We had been victorious, but the victory felt hollow. Each step forward seemed to bring us 2 steps closer to conflict, and I feared we were playing a dangerous game. The next day, I entered the conference room, feeling the weight of the galaxy on my shoulders. The leaders of our alien allies were already assembled, their expressions a mixture of wariness and expectation. I could see the remnants of distrust lingering in their eyes, and I knew I had to tread carefully. "Thank you all for coming," I began, trying to project confidence. "I know that recent events have caused significant concern regarding humanity's role in this conflict." The room was silent, eyes fixed on me. I could feel Eli's supportive presence behind me, his strength grounding me as I continued. "We acted out of necessity to defend our allies. The rogue factions represent a significant threat, not just to humanity, but to the entire alliance. Our victory over the Hithar Dominion was swift, but I understand that it has raised questions about our intentions." One of the alien leaders, a tall figure with deep-set eyes and ornate markings across their skin, spoke up. "Commander Reeves, while your efforts are commendable, we cannot ignore the destruction left in the wake of your intervention. Many of our people fear humanity's power. They worry you may become a threat to us all." "I assure you, that is not our intention," I responded, feeling the weight of their words. "We seek peace and stability. We understand the delicate balance that exists within our alliance, and we want to ensure that it remains intact." "But can you guarantee that?" Another leader interjected, their voice sharp. "Your tactics, while effective, are aggressive. We have seen the destruction you are capable of." I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. I cannot erase the scars left by war, nor can I promise that every action will be free from consequence. However, I am committed to fostering an environment of trust and cooperation. We must work together to ensure that the remnants of the Hithar factions do not threaten our shared future. As the discussion continued, I felt the atmosphere slowly shift. Doubts and fears were expressed openly, but so were hopes and desires for collaboration. Illy contributed significantly, offering insights into technology that could help bolster defenses and strategies for communication. The dialogue was tense but necessary, and slowly, a foundation of trust began to take shape. By the end of the meeting, we had not resolved everything, but we had taken a crucial step forward. "Thank you for your candor, Commander," the tall leader said as we concluded. "We hope that in time, our fears can be assuaged. We must remain vigilant, for the galaxy is a treacherous place." As I walked out, Eli fell in step beside me. "You did well, Adrian. They're not going to trust us overnight, but you opened the door for dialogue." I nodded, but unease settled in my stomach. I can't shake the feeling that we're on borrowed time. If these rogue factions band together, we could be facing a much larger conflict. "Then we prepare," Illy said, his determination unwavering. "We'll build those alliances, strengthen our defenses, and show them we're not the enemy." The days that followed were filled with planning and strategizing. The Intrepid was undergoing repairs, and I took the opportunity to ensure our crew was ready for whatever lay ahead. I watched as Illy poured himself into the work, his focus unwavering as he engaged with our allies, pushing for technology transfers and shared intelligence. But despite our best efforts, reports continued to filter in about Hithar skirmishes across the outer territories. Each incident echoed like a war drum, reminding us of the consequences of our earlier actions. The crew began to feel the weight of the tension, the uncertainty gnawing at their morale. One evening, after a long day of meetings, I found myself in the observation deck, staring out into the void of space. The stars shimmered like distant memories, beautiful yet haunting. I thought about the lives lost, the families torn apart by the conflict, and I wondered if we could ever truly escape the shadows of our past. Eli joined me, leaning against the railing as he surveyed the stars. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft. "I don't know," I admitted. "I thought winning would feel different. I thought we'd be celebrated, but all I feel is dread." "It's okay to feel that way. We're in uncharted territory. We did what we had to do, but the repercussions are still echoing through the galaxy," he said, his gaze unwavering. "Do you think we can change their perceptions?" I asked, searching for hope amid the darkness. "I do," he replied, a fierce determination in his eyes. "But it's going to take time. We need to show them that humanity can be a force for good, that we're not just harbingers of destruction." We stood in silence, the weight of our thoughts hanging between us like a fragile thread. I felt grateful for Illy's presence, his unwavering support grounding me as I navigated the complexities of leadership. As the weeks passed, we continued to prepare for what felt like an inevitable clash with the rogue Hithar factions. Tensions simmered among our alien allies, their fears manifesting in whispered conversations and lingering glances. I could see the strain on our crew as they worked tirelessly, trying to bridge the chasm that had formed between us and our former enemies. Then, one fateful day, we received alarming news. A massive Hithar fleet had been sighted approaching the outer colonies. Reports indicated that they were amassing their forces, preparing for an assault unlike any we had seen before. "Eli, we need to mobilize immediately," I said, my heart racing as I scanned the tactical readouts. "This is exactly what we feared." "Agreed. We have to warn the colonies and rally the Allied fleet," he replied, his fingers dancing over the controls as he relayed commands. We entered a state of high alert, scrambling to coordinate defenses and bolster our forces. The crew moved with purpose, fueled by a sense of urgency, as they prepared for the impending conflict. I felt the weight of leadership pressing heavily on my shoulders, and I knew I had to rise to the occasion. As we briefed our allies, I could see the fear in their eyes. "This is not just a fight for humanity," I reminded them. "This is a fight for all of us. We cannot let the shadows of the past dictate our future." As we launched into the fray, I steeled myself for the battles ahead. The Intrepid was a beacon of hope amidst the chaos, and I had to believe that together, we could carve a path forward. We would face whatever darkness lay ahead, not just for our own survival, but for the future of all our worlds. In the aftermath of our victory, the galaxy breathed a sigh of relief. But some shadows are too dark to escape. I stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, the familiar hum of the engines thrumming through my bones. The view outside was breathtaking, a sea of stars glittering against the vastness of space. Yet, instead of awe, my heart sank at the sight of it all. We had only just triumphed over the Hithar Dominion, and now I felt like a condemned man looking at the executioner's block, knowing that trouble was brewing just out of sight. Eli Torres, my trusted captain, was at the helm, his hands deftly navigating the controls. He glanced over his shoulder, concern etched across his face. "Adrian, what's eating at you? You've been quiet since we left the meeting." "Just thinking about the fallout from the war," I replied, forcing a smile to mask my unease. "We may have won, but the Hithar factions are still out there, lurking like wolves in the dark." Eli nodded, his expression turning serious. "You think they'll regroup? I mean, we took down their command structure. They shouldn't have the resources to launch another offensive." "Shouldn't is the key word," I said. "Desperation can drive them to do things we can't predict. We've got to stay alert." The comm system crackled to life, cutting through the silence. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the fleet," came the voice of our communications officer, Lieutenant Barrow. "It's urgent." I exchanged a glance with Eli before gesturing for the screen to be activated. The image of Admiral Chen flickered into view, her stern demeanor matching the gravity of her message. "Commander Reeves, Captain Torres, we have a situation," she said, her tone clipped. "Rogue Hithar factions have been reported in the nearby sector. They're moving in an organized manner, and there's chatter of potential ambushes on our supply lines." "Great," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. "Just what we need. Any idea how many ships we're dealing with?" "Estimates suggest they're working with a force of at least a dozen light cruisers. You're in a prime position to intercept, but you'll need to proceed with caution. They've been known to employ guerrilla tactics." I felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. "Understood, Admiral. We'll scout the area and keep an eye out for any signs of trouble." "Good luck, Intrepid," she replied before the transmission cut off. The bridge fell into a tense silence as I turned to face my crew. "All right, everyone, you heard the Admiral. We need to keep our eyes peeled and prepare for anything," I commanded, sensing the unease ripple through the team. "Eli, can you run a scan of the sector for any hidden ships?" "On it," he replied, fingers flying over the controls as the ship's systems hummed to life. A few minutes later, he let out a low whistle. "Commander, I'm picking up a small Hithar vessel just off our starboard. It looks like it's trying to hide in the asteroid belt. They're probably waiting for the perfect moment to ambush us." I felt my pulse quicken. "Set a course. Let's see what they're up to." As we approached, the small ship sprang into action, darting out from the asteroids like a snake striking at its prey. It opened fire, energy beams crackling through the void, lighting up the darkness with violent bursts of energy. "Evasive maneuvers," I shouted, gripping the console as Eli deftly steered the Intrepid away from the incoming fire. The ship jolted violently as we avoided the first round of shots, but it wouldn't be long before they got a clean shot at us. "Scanning for shields," Eli yelled, sweat beading on his forehead. "They've got a weak point on the aft section. If we can get behind them." "I'm on it," I said, my instincts kicking in. I engaged the weapon systems, feeling the rush of adrenaline surge through me. Let's give them a taste of their own medicine. I could see Eli gritting his teeth, focused on the tactical display as we maneuvered into position. The Hithar ship was fast, but we were no slouch either. With a well-timed burst from our forward cannons, the enemy ship exploded into a shower of debris, lighting up the darkness of space. "Nice shot," Eli said, a grin breaking through his earlier tension. But the victory was short-lived. Just as I began to relax, the sensor alarms blared again. I glanced at the displays, my heart sinking. "More ships are decloaking. We've got company." A flotilla of Hithar vessels emerged from the nearby asteroids, their weapons already charged and ready for combat. My stomach churned as I recognized the insignia on their hulls. They weren't just any rogue ships. These were remnants of the Dominion's fleet. "Commander," Eli's voice was urgent. "We're outnumbered. We need to retreat." "No," I interrupted, shaking my head. "We can't turn back now. We have to fight our way through. We need to warn the fleet." With a steely resolve, I activated the comms. "All hands, battle stations, prepare for combat." The crew sprang into action, adrenaline fueling their movements as we engaged the Hithar forces. The Intrepid rocked violently as enemy fire began to pound against our shields, and I felt the familiar rush of battle coursing through my veins. "Reinforce the shields to the forward array," I shouted, glancing at the tactical display where enemy ships swarmed like angry hornets. "We're taking damage, Commander," Barrow called out, her voice tense as she monitored the readouts. "Shields are holding, but they won't last long." "Eli, can you get a lock on their command ship?" "Trying, but they're using some sort of jamming signal," he replied, his brow furrowing in concentration. "I can't get a clean shot." "Then let's make them come to us." I adjusted our course, angling the ship to lure the enemy vessels into a tighter formation. "Eli, fire a warning shot over their bow. Let's see if we can provoke them into giving us an opening." He nodded, activating the weapon systems again. A precise shot sailed through the void, detonating near the lead Hithar cruiser. The ship veered off course, and the other vessels followed suit, tightening their formation around their command ship. "Now," I yelled, seizing the moment. "Hit their rear shields." Ili unleashed a volley of plasma bolts that struck true. The command ship flared in response, struggling to maintain cohesion as we pressed our advantage. I felt the thrill of combat surging through me. It was a heady mix of fear and exhilaration. But then, a chilling voice cut through the chaos. "You will regret this interference, humans." I recognized it immediately, a Hithar warlord, broadcasting from their command ship. Zarek. His image flickered onto our viewscreen, his expression twisted with rage. "Zarek," I said, voice steady, "you've lost this war. Stand down, or face the consequences." He laughed, a low, sinister sound that echoed in the silence of the bridge. "You think you have won? You have only awakened the fury of the Hithar. We will reclaim what is ours, and you will be the first to fall." "Prepare to engage," I ordered, adrenaline pumping. The battle intensified as Zarek's forces retaliated. Bolts of energy arced through space, and the Intrepid shook under the strain. We were outnumbered and outgunned, and I could feel the pressure of our situation closing in around me. "Eli, can you override their jamming signal?" I shouted over the cacophony of alarms and explosions. "Working on it," he replied, fingers flying over the controls. "If I can just got it, I can boost our systems and jam theirs back." The Intrepid hummed as I made the adjustments. I felt the tide shifting, even if just a little. "Let's see if we can turn the tables. Target their lead ship. Fire." Our weapons screamed as we unleashed a torrent of fire at the lead Hithar vessel. It faltered under the assault, but the rest of the enemy fleet remained relentless. "Commander, we're taking heavy fire," Barrow called out, her voice strained. "Keep those shields up. We're not backing down." The ship rocked violently as another volley of enemy fire impacted against our hull. I could see the tension etched on my crew's faces, the fear mingling with determination. "Adrian," Ellie said urgently, "we need to fall back. We can't keep this up forever." "No," I said, shaking my head. "We have to hold the line." Just as the battle seemed to reach a fever pitch, I caught a glimpse of movement on the tactical display. "Wait," I said, heart racing. "What's that?" A flicker on the screen showed a series of small vessels, a ragtag fleet of Allied ships emerging from the nearby sector, charging toward the fray. "Are they reinforcements?" Eli asked, eyes wide with hope. "Looks like it," I replied, a surge of relief washing over me. "They're here to back us up." Intrepid, "This is the Resolute. We're here to assist." A voice crackled over the comms. "Admiral Chen," I shouted, a wave of gratitude washing over me. "We're engaged with Hithar forces. We could use all the help we can get." "Roger that. We're moving to your position." The tide turned as the Allied ships surged into the fray. Their weapons lit up the darkness, providing a much-needed diversion. With renewed vigor, I rallied my crew. "Now's our chance. Push forward." As the Intrepid rejoined the battle, we fought side by side with our allies, pressing the Hithar back. Zark's forces began to falter, their cohesion breaking under the onslaught. "Commander, their command ship is retreating," Barrow shouted, relief evident in her voice. "Don't let them escape," I ordered, adrenaline surging through me. "We need to finish this." Eli tapped furiously at the console, eyes wide with determination. Locking onto their engines now. With a thunderous roar, our weapons fired once more, striking true. Zark's command ship erupted in a blinding flash, the remnants of the Hithar fleet scattering in disarray. The bridge erupted in cheers, the sound washing over me like a bomb. We had fought through the storm and emerged victorious once again. But as I looked out into the vastness of space, I felt a chill settle deep in my gut. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The shadows of conflict loomed over us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely a prelude to something much darker. "Commander," Eli said, breaking into my thoughts, "we need to report back to Admiral Chen. She'll want to debrief." "Right," I replied, forcing a nod. "Let's head back to the fleet." As we turned the Intrepid back toward the heart of our Allied forces, I couldn't help but feel the weight of what lay ahead. The galaxy was in turmoil, and despite our hard-won victory, there were still ghosts lurking in the shadows, ghosts we had yet to confront. Sometimes the quiet is the most dangerous moment before a storm, and we were right in its path. The hum of the Intrepid filled the air as I surveyed the training bay, where our makeshift army had gathered for the day's drills. A motley mix of humans and various alien races stood before me, their faces shadowed by doubt. Tension crackled in the air, a palpable reminder of the rising stakes we faced with Zark and his Hithar forces regrouping. "All right, everyone, listen up," I called out, trying to inject some enthusiasm into my voice. But even I could hear the fatigue laced within. "We've got a lot to cover today. I want to see focus, determination, and most importantly, teamwork. We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for every ally we've got." The response was muted. Some nodded, while others exchanged glances filled with uncertainty. Eli stood to my right, arms crossed, scanning the crowd with a keen eye. I could feel his silent assessment weighing heavily on him. Eli had become my right hand, his resolve hardening alongside his leadership skills. But even he could see the shadows of fear creeping into our ranks. "Let's start with some drills," Eli said, stepping forward to take charge of the tactical simulations. His voice had a calming quality that cut through the tension. "I want the ground troops to form two lines. Flyers, I need you to keep an eye on the perimeter while the infantry drills. Remember, Zark's forces are unpredictable. We can't afford to be complacent." I watched him take control, pride swelling in my chest. Just a few months ago, Eli had been a reluctant participant, but now he commanded respect not just from the humans, but from our alien allies as well. As he moved through the lines, providing guidance and encouragement, I couldn't help but admire his growth. The drills continued, punctuated by bursts of gunfire and the whir of training droids simulating enemy attacks. But despite the commotion, my thoughts drifted to Zark. The Hithar warlord was no ordinary enemy. He was a master manipulator and a tactician. While we had won the last engagement, I knew that victory had not quelled his ambition. "Adrian," Eli's voice snapped me back to reality. I turned to see him waving me over, a look of concern etched on his face. "We've got a situation." "What kind of situation?" I asked, my heart sinking. "Counterintelligence report," he said, lowering his voice. "Zark's men have infiltrated our ranks." A knot tightened in my stomach. "How do we know for sure?" Ely nodded toward a nearby monitor displaying encrypted messages intercepted from our communication channels. We've been tracking unusual transmissions. I'm still decoding them, but it looks like Zerk's people are attempting to sow discord among the Allied forces. We need to act quickly to root them out before they cause real damage. I took a deep breath, mentally preparing for the next steps. We'll hold an emergency meeting with the leaders. If we can expose Zerk's spies, we'll stand a better chance of countering his influence. Can you gather the intel while I coordinate with the commanders? Already on it, Eli replied, determination flashing in his eyes. As I made my way to the command center, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. The political landscape among our allies was already fragile, and any sign of weakness could fracture our coalition. If Zerk could turn even a few factions against us, we would find ourselves fighting on multiple fronts. The meeting room buzzed with tension as I stepped inside. Alien leaders filled the seats, their expressions a mix of frustration and fear. Among them was Kaelka, a seasoned strategist from the Quillen race, whose deep blue skin shimmered under the harsh lights. He looked up as I entered, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Commander Reeves," he greeted, his voice a deep rumble. "We need to discuss our next steps. Zerk is gaining momentum, and we cannot afford to hesitate." I nodded, gathering my thoughts before addressing the group. "I appreciate your concerns, but I have just received intel indicating that Zerk has infiltrated our ranks. We cannot fight an enemy we cannot see. We need to root out these spies before they incite panic." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the room. An alien leader from the Jilthian faction, a tall creature with elongated limbs and glimmering scales, stood up, his voice filled with indignation. "You humans are quick to point fingers. How can we trust your claims? You've already proven to be a reckless force on the battlefield." I felt the anger boiling within me, but I forced it down. "I understand your frustration, but right now we need unity. Zerk thrives on division. If we don't act, we risk losing everything we've fought for." Kaelka chimed in, his voice steady. "Commander Reeves is correct. We must investigate these claims and purge any spies from our ranks. If we remain divided, Zerk will exploit our weaknesses." The Jilthian leader opened his mouth to protest, but I interjected before he could speak. "I can mobilize our troops to secure the perimeter and start a thorough investigation, but we'll need cooperation from all factions." Slowly, the tension in the room began to ease as the leaders nodded in agreement. I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. Perhaps we could hold this alliance together after all. "Let's set a timeline for the investigations," I proposed, leaning forward to maintain their attention. "We can't let Zerk catch us off guard. We need to strike first while we still have the advantage." As the discussion unfolded, I felt Ele's presence at the back of the room, his eyes scanning for anything amiss. I was grateful to have him by my side. His instincts were sharp, and his ability to read people had become invaluable. The meeting wrapped up with a sense of renewed purpose, but as we moved to secure our positions, an urgent alert blared through the intercoms. "Commander Reeves, we've got a situation." I rushed back to the operations room, where alarms were ringing and screens displayed live feeds from our key supply lines. A Hithar raid was in progress, and I could see the chaos unfolding through the feed. Ships darting through space, small skirmishes erupting on the ground. "Get me the fleet commander," I barked, the adrenaline surging through me. "On it, sir," a crew member replied, frantically typing commands. Ele was already at the console, eyes locked onto the screen as he began relaying tactical orders. "We need to mobilize the nearest forces. We can't let them cut off our supply lines." "Send out a call for all available ships," I instructed. "We're going to counterattack before they can establish a foothold." As our forces rallied, I felt the tension heighten. I knew that this would be a critical moment for us. If we could demonstrate our resolve and capability in battle, perhaps we could rally the troops and quell any lingering doubts about humanity's role in this war. "Are we ready?" I asked Ele as we prepped for departure. "Ready as we'll ever be," he replied, Determination etched across his face. "Let's show them what we've got." The Intrepid surged into action, our engines roaring to life as we soared through the cosmos. As we approached the supply line, I could see the Hithar forces scattering, their ships flickering like fireflies against the vast darkness. "Target their flanks," I ordered, watching the tactical displays as our ships moved into formation. "We need to outmaneuver them before they regroup." The battle commenced, blaster fire lighting up the void as our ships engaged the Hithar fleet. I led the charge, adrenaline pumping as I deftly maneuvered the Intrepid through enemy fire. Each explosion that erupted around us was a stark reminder of the stakes at hand. "On your mark," Ile shouted over the comms, coordinating the fire from our allied ships. "Now," I commanded, and our guns opened fire, targeting a Hithar cruiser that had strayed too close. The ship erupted in a ball of flames, and I felt a surge of triumph. But victory was short-lived. The Hithar fleet quickly regrouped, launching a counteroffensive. Their formations tightened as they closed in on us, and my heart raced as I watched their ships moving like a deadly ballet. "Watch your six," Ile yelled, just as a Hithar fighter slipped into our blind spot. I felt the impact as it clipped our wing, sending us spinning. "Stabilizers are failing," a crew member shouted, scrambling to regain control. "Hold steady," I barked, wrestling with the controls. "We're not going down that easily." With sheer determination, I pulled the Intrepid back on course, our ship jolting as Ile fired back at our pursuers. The chaos of the battlefield roared around us, but I focused on the task at hand. We had to secure this supply line, not just for ourselves, but for the entire coalition. As we engaged in dogfights, I could feel the tide of the battle shifting. Our allied forces fought valiantly, but I could see the desperation in their eyes, the weight of fear pressing down on them. "Adrian, we need to rally the infantry," Ile urged. "We can't let them take ground." "Right," I nodded, activating the comms. "All infantry units, fall back and regroup. We're launching a ground offensive to secure the perimeter." As we landed, the ground was a war zone. Blaster fire whizzed overhead, and explosions rocked the earth beneath my feet. I rallied our troops, pushing them forward, reminding them that we were all in this together. Ile moved among the troops, offering encouragement and tactical advice. I saw him blossom into a true leader, commanding the respect of the soldiers around him. The fear that had plagued our forces began to dissipate, replaced by a fierce resolve to fight back against the encroaching enemy. "Stay close," I shouted as we moved forward, the sounds of battle echoing around us. "We need to push them back to secure our supply line." As we engaged the Hithar ground forces, the battle grew more intense. We fought valiantly, but I could see the Hithar soldiers' resolve matching ours. "Reeves," Ile shouted, firing back at a group of Hithar fighters. "They're flanking us." "Form a defensive line," I yelled, rallying our troops. "We can't let them break our ranks." The fighting continued, an exhausting clash of wills and firepower. But just when I thought we'd been pushed to the brink, I saw the tide begin to turn. Our allies pressed forward, refusing to back down, their spirits igniting as they fought alongside us. With renewed vigor, we advanced, forcing the Hithar back. One by one, their soldiers fell, and their ranks began to break. I could see victory on the horizon, but I knew better than to celebrate too soon. As the last Hithar forces retreated, a sense of triumph washed over me. We had defended our supply line, showcasing the fighting spirit of our coalition. But as the adrenaline faded, a stark realization set in. Zarek was still out there, plotting his next move. Returning to the Intrepid, I took a moment to breathe, my heart racing from the battle. Ile joined me, his eyes bright with the thrill of victory. "Not bad for a day's work, huh?" he said, grinning. "Yeah, but this isn't over," I replied, scanning the space around us. "Zarek will retaliate. We need to strike first and hard before he can unleash chaos." Ile nodded, understanding the weight of my words. "I'll start gathering intel on potential targets. We can't let him regroup." As we prepared for the challenges ahead, I felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders once more. But in that moment, surrounded by my crew and allies, I knew we would face whatever came next together, and together we would forge our path through the storm. It was now or never. We either crush the Hithar resurgence or watch the galaxy burn. The gravity of that thought weighed heavily on my shoulders as I stared at the holographic projection of Zarek's stronghold. The swirling lights of the data displayed the structure's defenses in stark contrast to the battle plans Eli and I had painstakingly put together. I clenched my jaw, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline as the realization of what we were about to undertake hit me. "Adrian," Eli said, pulling my attention from the screen, "this is it. We need to be ready for anything." His voice held a blend of determination and uncertainty, mirroring my own feelings. I nodded, but the knot in my stomach twisted tighter. After all we had fought for, the blood that had been shed, human and alien alike, I knew that failure wasn't an option. Zarek's reign of terror had to end now. "You think he's expecting us?" I asked, trying to distract myself from the anticipation gnawing at my insides. Eli shrugged, glancing back at the projection. "If he's half the strategist we've heard he is, he might have a trick or two up his sleeve. But that's why we're hitting him first. We have the element of surprise, and we need to make it count." Our plan hinged on the intelligence we had gathered over the past few weeks, information on Zarek's defensive capabilities and the positioning of his loyalists. This wasn't just another skirmish. This was a decisive assault. The stakes had never been higher. As we prepared, the Intrepid hummed beneath our feet, a living entity of steel and hope. I walked through the corridors, passing crew members checking their gear, exchanging nervous glances but wearing faces of grim determination. They were about to launch into the fray of war, perhaps for the last time. I felt their tension seep into me, fueling my own resolve. "Adrian," a voice called from behind me. It was Kaelka, the alien strategist who had been a crucial ally since the start of this conflict. His dark, scaled skin glistened in the ship's lights as he approached, his expression serious. "We need to discuss the final details of the assault." "Let's go over it again," I replied, leading him into the briefing room. Eli followed, and we quickly settled around the table that displayed our battle plans. "Zarek's stronghold is fortified with both physical defenses and personnel," Kaelka said, pointing to the map. "We have identified several weak points, but we must coordinate our attacks flawlessly. One misstep could result in catastrophic losses." "I understand," I replied, trying to shake off the weight of the lives resting on our shoulders. "We'll hit them hard and fast, using our combined forces to create a breach. Once we're inside, Eli and I will take care of Zarek." Kaelka's eyes narrowed as he considered my words. "And if he has a trap waiting, if he intends to lure you into a false sense of security?" I locked eyes with him, my voice steady. "Then we'll adapt. We always have." "Arrogance can lead to ruin," he warned. "Maybe, but so can hesitation," Eli interjected, clearly feeling the tension rising. "We need to act decisively, and that means trusting our instincts." Kaelka regarded us both thoughtfully, and after a moment, he nodded. "Very well. We proceed as planned." As the hours ticked away, the crew assembled in the hangar bay. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of excitement and dread. I could see the fear in some of their eyes, the uncertainty of facing a mission that could end in disaster. "Listen up," I shouted, projecting my voice over the noise of the hangar. "Today, we stand not just as humans but as allies. This mission is not just about taking down Zarek, it's about securing a future for all of us. We fight together, and we fight for each other. Remember that." The crew erupted in cheers, the sound echoing in the vastness of the hangar. I felt a surge of hope, knowing that they were ready to fight alongside us. We boarded the Intrepid, and I took my seat in the command chair, my heart racing in sync with the ship's engines. "On our way," Eli confirmed as he powered up the systems. The ship's engines hummed, and the stars outside began to streak as we jumped into hyperspace. The transition was jarring, the world outside twisting and stretching until the galaxy settled back into view. The sight of Zarek's stronghold loomed ahead, a massive structure that floated menacingly against the backdrop of stars. "Deploying fighter wings," Ely announced. "Let's clear the way." The Intrepid shuddered as small craft launched into the void, zipping toward the stronghold like arrows. I watched the display, my stomach nodding as I took in the scale of the enemy forces that began to mobilize against us. "Here we go," I muttered under my breath. The initial skirmish erupted, and it was chaos. Enemy ships engaged our fighters in a dogfight that seemed to stretch across the very fabric of space. I could see the shimmering explosions of plasma burst light the void as our forces clashed with Zarek's loyalists. "Adrian, we need to move," Eli shouted over the din of the bridge, snapping me back to the moment. "We've got fighters coming in on our flank." "Then let's give them something to think about," I replied, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Take us in." The Intrepid surged forward, dodging fire as I ordered a broadside strike against the enemy. We unleashed our weapons, tearing into the nearest Hithar ships with brutal efficiency. I felt the ship respond to my commands as though it was an extension of myself. Each shot we fired was a reminder of what we fought for, a declaration that we would not back down. "Adrian," Ely called out, urgency in his voice. "We're losing ground. The enemy is regrouping." "Then we regroup too," I yelled back, my heart pounding in my chest. "Rally our forces. We need to push forward." As we closed in on the stronghold, I caught sight of Kalka's ship, the Rashka, maneuvering expertly through enemy fire. I felt a surge of pride for our allies as they fought valiantly alongside us. "Prepare to breach," I ordered, my gaze fixed on the stronghold's defenses. It was heavily fortified, but I knew our advantage lay in surprise. We had to take that chance. 3, 2, 1, now, I shouted, and Eli hit the trigger. The Intrepid surged forward, ramming straight into the Hithar defenses. Alarms blared, and the ship shook violently as we blasted through the outer barriers, our weapons tearing into the station's hull. The crew worked frantically at their stations, firing weapons and tracking enemy movements. "Adrian, we've breached," Eli shouted, excitement and fear blending in his voice. "We're in." "Good. All forces, push forward. Target Zarek's command center," I ordered, my heart racing as we navigated the chaos inside. The station was a labyrinth of corridors and armored doors, but we had one goal: find Zarek and end this. We moved in a tight formation, ducking under fire and advancing with purpose. I led the charge, adrenaline coursing through me. Every corner we turned brought us closer to our target, but the deeper we went, the stronger the Hithar resistance became. "Adrian," Eli's voice broke through my focus. "Something's off. I can feel it." I shot him a look, but before I could respond, a deafening explosion rocked the corridor. The walls shook, and a cloud of debris engulfed us. I stumbled, my ears ringing as I struggled to regain my footing. "Status report," I barked, my voice barely cutting through the chaos. "Casualties, we're losing people," Eli shouted, panic evident in his voice. "We need to get out of here." But I refused to back down. "No, we push on. We can't turn back now." As we pressed forward, I felt a strange chill creep over me, an unsettling sense that we were being watched. And then I saw him, Zarek, standing at the end of the corridor, flanked by a group of his loyalists. Well, he sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "The great Commander Reeves and his pathetic crew. You think you can just waltz in here and claim victory?" I clenched my fists, anger boiling inside me. "Your reign of terror ends today, Zarek. We're not going to let you hurt anyone else." His laughter echoed in the hall, cold and mocking. "You believe you are the heroes here? You, who have brought destruction to my people. You are the real threat to this galaxy." The words struck me like a physical blow. I felt Eli tense beside me, sensing my inner turmoil. "Enough of this," I shouted, stepping forward. "You're nothing but a coward hiding behind your minions. Face me." Zarek's eyes gleamed with amusement. "Very well, Reeves. Let us settle this, man to man. But know this, you will never be able to erase the scars of war." With that, he lunged, and I barely had time to react. We collided, and the world around us faded into chaos. My instincts took over, honed from countless battles, as I fought to maintain my balance. The fight was brutal. Zarek was strong, his strikes fueled by desperation and rage. I countered his blows, trying to find an opening, but the weight of my previous battles pressed down on me. Each hit I landed felt like a hollow victory. The memories of those I'd lost haunted me with every move. "Why do you fight?" Zarek growled, ducking beneath my swing and landing a brutal jab to my midsection. "You cannot save your people. They will never trust you." I grunted, fighting through the pain, the words fueling my anger. "I fight because I have to. For those who've fallen, for the future we can build together." The words seemed to cut through his bravado, if only for a moment. I seized the opportunity and struck again, catching him off guard. We grappled, trading blows until I finally got the upper hand, slamming him against the wall. "Enough of this," I shouted, desperation rising in my chest. "You're a monster, Zarek. You think this is about glory? It's about survival." He laughed, a chilling sound. "You don't understand. War is a cycle. You can't escape it. Even if you defeat me, another will rise to take my place." I met his gaze, my resolve hardening. "Not if I have anything to say about it." With one final push, I incapacitated him, leaving him crumpled on the floor. Breathing heavily, I stepped back, trying to reconcile the conflict within me. Victory came at a cost, and I could feel the weight of every life lost. "Adrian," Eli called from behind me. "We need to move. The rest of the HFY are regrouping." I took one last look at Zarek, knowing that I had defeated him, but the scars of this war would linger long after. "Let's go," I said, turning my back on the fallen leader and sprinting toward the exit. As we made our way back to the hangar, chaos reigned. Our forces fought against overwhelming odds, but the tide had turned. Zarek's loyalists, now leaderless, were faltering. We pushed through, and finally, I reached the hangar bay where the Intrepid awaited. "Get us out of here," I shouted to Eli. "Working on it," he replied, frantically tapping commands into the control panel. With a shudder, the ship powered up, and we launched into space. The stars blurred past as we fled the chaos of the stronghold, leaving the remnants of battle behind us. "Did we win?" Eli asked, his voice strained. "Enough to make a difference," I said, though doubt clung to my heart. We had destroyed Zarek's base, but at what cost? As we returned to Allied space, I could already hear the cheers of the crew. They hailed us as heroes once more, but I felt the weight of every life lost in the battles we had fought. "Victory is not what it seems," Eli stated quietly, echoing the truth I struggled to accept. In the aftermath of conflict, I find myself standing at the precipice of a new era, grappling with the weight of what it means to rebuild trust. The air inside the conference chamber is thick with tension. Alien leaders Kalaxian, Vortari, and HFY survivors fidget in their seats, their wary eyes fixed on Eli and me. Just weeks ago, we were embroiled in a fight for survival against the Dominion. But now, we are tasked with ensuring peace in a galaxy fraught with uncertainty. "Adrian," Eli murmurs, drawing my attention back to the dais where we stand. His voice is steady, but I can sense his unease. "Are you ready?" "Ready as I'll ever be," I reply, plastering on a smile that doesn't quite reach my eyes. The truth is, I'm terrified. The stakes have never been higher, and every move we make here could shape the future of our species. Humanity has shown its might, but now we need to prove that we can be allies, not conquerors. I step forward, glancing at the assembled leaders. "Thank you all for coming," I begin, my voice echoing in the vast chamber. "We are here today to forge a path forward, to address our past and lay the groundwork for a lasting alliance." A Vortari leader, tall and armored in iridescent scales, speaks first. "Why should we trust you? You humans arrived as saviors, yet your power grows unchecked. What guarantees can you offer that you will not become a new oppressor?" "Yeah, what's stopping you from turning on us when it's convenient?" a Kalaxian leader adds, his multiple eyes narrowing in suspicion. I take a deep breath, reminding myself that the galaxy is still reeling from our recent victory. I understand your concerns. The speed at which humanity has risen in power has made many uneasy. But we stand here not just as conquerors, but as partners. Our commitment is to peace, not dominance. As I speak, I catch a glance from Eli. He's nodding slightly, encouraging me to keep going, but I can see the flicker of worry in his eyes. We have faced enough conflict. Now, we need to find a way to heal. A voice from the back interrupts me. Your actions in the war were brutal, Commander. How do we know you won't resort to those tactics again if challenged? The weight of those words hangs heavy in the room. I can't deny the truth of it. We fought hard, we lost lives, and our methods were, at times, ruthless. I cannot change the past, but I can promise to learn from it. The goal is to ensure that no one, human or alien, has to suffer the way we did during the war. Together, we can create a framework for mutual respect and protection. A tense silence follows, broken only by the sound of chairs scraping against the floor as leaders confer quietly among themselves. I can feel the apprehension vibrating through the air like a live wire. But beneath the surface, something else lurks, a sense of unresolved tension that I can't quite place. Later, as the summit drags on, Eli pulls me aside. I'm not sure this is going well, he whispers, his brow furrowed. They're not buying what we're selling. And the more we talk, the more I feel like they're just waiting for us to slip up. I nod, feeling the weight of his words. We need to show them we're not just here to talk. We need action. They need to see that we're committed to the alliance. Eli's gaze shifts. I've been digging into Zarek's followers. There are whispers of a resurgence, a hidden faction planning revenge. If we can uncover that, maybe we can prove our dedication to peace. A chill runs down my spine. I had hoped Zarek's defeat would quell the animosity, but I should have known better. I nod resolutely. Let's investigate. If there's even a hint of a threat, we have to act. Under the cover of night, Eli and I board a stealth shuttle, flanked by a small team of trusted allies. We navigate through the dimly lit corridors of the remnants of a Hithar base, the tension palpable in the air. My heart races as we approach a room filled with holoscreens displaying plans and maps. There, Eli points, his voice barely above a whisper. That terminal looks operational. If we can get access, we might find something useful. As I move to the terminal, the adrenaline surges through me. I can almost taste the victory of knowledge. Eli connects his console, and together we sift through encrypted files. My fingers dance across the interface, and I feel a rush of hope until it crashes down around us. Alert! Intruders detected, a mechanical voice booms through the room. Damn it, Eli exclaims, scrambling to cover our tracks. Before we can react, the door bursts open, and Hithar soldiers pour in. I leap to my feet, adrenaline igniting my senses. We need to fight our way out, I shout, grabbing my sidearm. As we engage, the chaos envelops us. I can hear Eli's voice, barking orders, rallying our allies. We fight as a unit, but the numbers are against us. I feel the weight of responsibility crash over me. If we fail here, all we've fought for will be lost. With a surge of determination, I push forward, taking out one enemy after another. Eli's voice keeps me grounded, guiding me through the fray. Just as it feels like hope is slipping away, we manage to break through the door, sprinting down the corridor to freedom. Back aboard the shuttle, panting and bruised, Eli and I exchange a glance. What did we find? I ask, feeling the tension ease slightly. Eli pulls up the files we downloaded. Plans for a new uprising. They're trying to rally the remaining Hithar to strike back. We need to inform the council. The next few hours are a blur. We present our findings to the summit, the tension palpable as we lay bare the threat of Zarek's loyalists. The alien leaders exchange uneasy glances, the fear in their eyes unmistakable. Finally, the Galaxian leader stands. If we are to trust humanity, we must unite against this threat. Our strength lies in our numbers. With that, we prepare for a final confrontation against the remnants of Zarek's forces. As we mobilize, I can feel a sense of purpose wash over me. This is the moment we can prove our commitment to peace through strength. When we engage the Hithar loyalists, it feels different. This is not a battle for survival. This is a battle for the future. I fight with every ounce of strength, rallying our allies, pushing through the chaos. In the end, we emerge victorious, the remnants of Zerk's forces scattered and defeated. Standing in the aftermath, I gaze out into the star-speckled abyss, feeling the weight of the past, but also a flicker of hope for the future. As Eli and I leave the council chamber, I turn to him, my heart racing. The real work begins now. Eli nods, a smile breaking through the tension. Together, we can shape a better future.